The following program was paid for by Templar Real Estate. The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the staff and management of WMTR. As always, it is advisable to consult a professional before making a major decision. It's time now for the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Here's your host for the program, Joseph J. Zoppi.
Hi, this is Joseph J. Zoppi, real estate investor, consumer advocate, author, and managing partner of Templar Real Estate Enterprises. You can reach us at TemplarBuysHouses.com or 973-240-8593. We are not a real estate agency, and I'm not a real estate agent. But we do have individuals on staff that are agents. We're an investment firm. We buy houses for cash. We have agents that sell houses through the traditional real estate multiple listing service. We invest individuals' money in real estate. We purchase apartments, buildings. We do joint ventures with other real estate investors. We do not speculate, and we're very protective of our money and our investors' money. This show will go over everything. It's about real estate, those things that impact real estate, the economy, interest rates. We'll discuss trends in the real estate market. Real estate is the biggest investment for most individuals, so it's important that you know as much as possible, whether you're buying a property, selling a property, or investing in real estate. So last week, I discussed two of the 12 points when you're looking to use a cash buyer, just like ourselves. The first one I said make sure you look out for was how long the company was in business. And I explained how to look at the business, how to research it. Second one was for the Better Business Bureau. I highly recommend, if you're dealing with certain types of companies and certain businesses, that you look at the Better Business Bureau and look on their website, make sure they have good ratings. Contractors being one of them. And I said that before. You know, I've heard too many horror stories of contractors taking money and not fulfilling their obligations. So the BBB really helps with that. The next one we have to go over today is to assign a contract. So what is that? So a lot of investors will negotiate a deal with the seller. They'll have a contract, they'll put it together, and one of the clauses within that contract is that they could assign the contract to someone else. So basically that says that they'll put it under contract and then have someone else fulfill the obligations of that contract. Those obligations are paying for the property. And the reason they do that is they might not have enough cash or credit line to purchase the property. So what you're doing is you're leaving it up to that individual to find someone else to source the money and then purchase the property. Now, if you go into that with eyes wide open, that's one thing. It's another thing if you don't realize that. Now, obviously, the best option is to purchase a property or to sell a property, really, with someone that has the money. We don't normally assign contracts. On very, very rare circumstances. We might work with a seller and they'll say, Joe, I really need to sell this property. And I'll say, I just can't buy it. Because there's certain things that I don't like about it. Maybe the location, or usually it's the location. Or if it's like in a flood zone. But it's something that's pretty drastic and we won't buy it. But I said, if you want to work with us, we will look for an investor. And we make it very clear that we might not be able to find an investor. But it's very important that you know the pros and cons of signing a contract. You know, one of the reasons why individuals do it and they engage in it is because they feel desperate. They say there's no one else out there that's going to buy my home. And that might be the case. And under that scenario, it might be good to have that in the contract to reassign it. But holistically, we really don't like that, and we frown upon it, and we encourage individuals that are looking for a cash buyer not to go into the contract under those scenarios. Now, when I had brought this up to a number of sellers, they said, well, we're not really concerned because our attorney will take care of that. And I said, that's not necessarily the case, because not all attorneys will look at that and write that out of a contract or recommend changes. Each attorney looks at it differently, and some will just go by it and say, okay. And that's where, again, education and to look at different scenarios and to understand them is important. The next one is we have certain investors, they'll come to you and they'll present a contract and they'll say, just sign it. And then you could send it to your attorney after that. Now, in the past, I didn't have any issue either way with that, because usually there's a clause in there for attorney review. But most recently, I come upon a individual that called me up, and there was no attorney review process. And he had a lot of problems getting out of that contract because the contract was so poorly written. And it was very strongly in favor of the buyer as opposed to the seller. There was a lot of things that he could not do, and because of that, he went through a lot of angst and concern about that. The contract was basically he can reassign it. So that individual that was going to buy the property was looking to reassign it because he did not have the money. But on top of that, he locked the individual in for approximately 120 days into that contract. So he couldn't find someone else to buy the contract or anything. And he was very, very concerned. I worked with him, and we were able to assist him in getting out of the contract. But, he went through a lot of pain and a lot of worries, and I was very surprised because I've never seen that before where there wasn't any legal review. So even as many transactions I've performed, you really never know, and it depends what's in the contract. That's why you need a good attorney. And in future episodes, I'll be bringing on an attorney or two, and I'll have questions for her or him, and we could discuss certain things like that. But it's very, very important that going in, what are the issues, what are the pros, what are the cons to a certain contract. And again, do not sign anything until you get an attorney. That is very important. And if the company or the individual for the company says, well, then they're going to take the offer back, just head for the hills. Do not succumb to anything like that. So again, it's very important. How long the company's been in business, being part of the Better Business Bureau, ensuring that the contract doesn't have a reassignment clause, or if it does, what the pros and cons of it are. Again, the pros are if you have a property you can't sell and you're really worried and you've talked to other cash buyers, then maybe a reassignment would be fine. But those are under rare circumstances. We had one where we were looking at a house in Teaneck, and it had a 5 or 6 lane road in front of the property. So the chances of selling that property after I purchased it were going to be really low. So, we talked to the woman and said, we're not going to buy it, but we could put a contract together and then look for a cash buyer or an investor that would be interested. Afterwards, she did get a good offer on it, and I was very happy with that. But yeah, we would not have purchased that property. And again, we'll never force an individual to sign a contract immediately. We really want to take the time for it to be done properly. Thank you very much.
Life can be a roller coaster, and sometimes you need to sell your house fast. That's why there's TemplarBuysHouses.com. Maybe you're downsizing, getting a divorce, having health or financial issues. If so, head to TemplarBuysHouses.com. TEMPLAR BuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com will buy your house quickly and without hassle. If you've inherited a house that is vacant, contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. Dealing with them is easy and quick. No high-pressure sales tactics, and you won't have to fix up the house. They will buy your house as is. You pick the closing date and when you move out. No commissions and no hassles. Contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. TEMPLAR BuysHouses.com with an A rating from the Better Business Bureau. Call 973-315-7990. That's 973-315-7990.
Be sure to tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. for the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Get informed and have your questions answered on AM 1250 WMTR.
Hello, this is Joseph J. Zoppi. Welcome back to the Templar Real Estate Radio Show. And right now, I'd like to discuss a couple of things. One is when you're putting offers to purchase a house. So there's a couple ways of winning a bid. Sometimes you might have a bidding war, and there's a couple options there in terms of how to win the house. One of them is an all-cash offer. So that's going to trump everything else for the most part. There was an article in Realtor Magazine that listed out different strategies to win in a bidding war. And we have some still. The market's cooled a little bit. You'll usually see this more in the summer when the market's a little hotter. But this will happen anytime in terms of a bidding war. First is, like I said, an all-cash offer. So back in 2016, 2017, Realtor Magazine was given a percentage that you'd win out like 90% of the time. And now it's more like 206%. Why the increase? Well, because the market's cooled a little bit. Previously, you could just keep the house on the market longer back in 2016, 2017. Now, the cash offer really trumps everything. We had a situation where it was back in, I think, 2018, and we had a cash offer. We had a lot of traffic coming through, and they presented to us a cash offer. It was less than our asking price, and we said, yeah, let's go for it. We didn't like that it was discounted as much, so we negotiated and we moved it up a decent amount. And they assumed just because it was a cash offer they could discount it considerably, which wasn't the case. And so they came back, they raised it, and then they changed the terms again, so they wanted to reduce the price. So once that happened, I started becoming very wary. They then said that they had an agent, and we said we would pay an agent fee. And normally we do, but they had already negotiated, and then all of a sudden they supposedly had an agent. So then that was going to be another 2.5%. We closed that down quickly because the contract was already signed, and they were just trying to negotiate a better deal. So we continued with the transaction, and then we had an inspection, and the agent, which we turned down, she selected the inspector, and that the individual came in and just listed everything under the sun. We redid this house completely, and the things he was saying were it was never so bad. They were saying that every floor had to be replaced because it was warped, which wasn't the case. He was saying that the lights had to be replaced because, or the entire light, because they were hi-hats, and we had some burned out bulbs. And he didn't say, well, check the bulb first, and if the bulb isn't working, or a good bulb is put in and it's still not working, it needs to be fixed. But he didn't say anything like that. It was just replace this, replace this, replace this. So after that, we just said, no, we're not going to go any further with this. But this happens once in a while to us, with an appraiser or an inspector, especially when a house is rehabbed. So they take some joy in trying to look for every possible thing. Subsequently, we had another inspector come in, and he picked usual 4 or 5 different things that were, I think, wrong with the property that needed to be fixed. We will never fix 100% of the property before sale. Even though it does look good, there'll be some minor imperfections because you can never fix everything, first of all. Second of all, the inspector has to find problems, because if they don't find problems, people are going to question whether the inspector's doing a good job or not. I had a point just the other day where we had a contract. It went to the attorney, and the attorney had no issues. Well, the person that hired the attorney said, well, there's something wrong with the attorney because he didn't find anything. So it was a pretty, basic contract when we purchased a house. And so a lot of times we don't have issues with contracts, but this individual said, no, I'm going to get another attorney because, basically he didn't find anything wrong with your contract. So again, when we're listing houses and we rehab a house, we do leave a few things so the individual, the inspector could catch them and, feel and justify his position. And that's fine. Anything that's glaring, we always fix it. We want to make sure from a safety perspective it's corrected, as well as an aesthetic perspective. So we do all those things, and we want to make sure that it's a good product that's put out. But it is something that, we always, look out for. Besides an all-cash offer, another approach is really a client letter. So we've had situations where individuals have given us letters, especially young couples, saying this is our dream house. We would love to have this house. And we had a bid war on one of these situations, and they sent us a letter. And, we liked the letter. We liked the people that wanted to buy the house. They were a young couple, and it was nice. It was really, really nice. And they were getting married. So it was a good story. And we liked it a lot, but and we were going to take that offer, even though it was probably $4,000 less. And if, it was under our own company, so we didn't care if we were going to lose $4,000 as opposed to the other offer. If it was an investor, if one of our investors, we would have taken the top dollar. But under this situation, we were leaning very strongly towards that young couple. But then when I told the real estate agent for the other bidder, they raised the price again. So all of a sudden it wasn't $4,000, it was $10,000. So unfortunately, we had to take the other offer because it was too much. It was just substantially more. But a client letter will work. And, it definitely does persuade individuals. And a lot of things are based on emotion. That's the way it is. We're professionals, so we try to take emotion out of the equation as much as possible. But on certain situations, we will go a certain way. We'll go with our heart, especially when we're working with individuals on tough situations where we have to purchase their house. We work very closely with them, and I think that's really important and really separates us from other individuals. There's other things that you could do when you're in a bidding war. You could waive the inspection. You could waive certain contingencies, finance contingencies, things like that. But they really don't impact the situation too much. And, in terms of inspection, I would always make sure you have an inspection because you really never know. The one scenario where you could probably waive it is like a townhome or a condo, because you're really just dealing with the inside. You don't have to worry as much about the roof, the foundation, things like that, because that's usually taken care of by the homeowners association. Unless, of course, there's water coming in, then you kind of need to know that if it's going into the basement, especially if it's finished. So that's where we are with that. And thank you very much for this segment of bidding war and how to win it. Thanks.
Life can be a roller coaster, and sometimes you need to sell your house fast. That's why there's TemplarBuysHouses.com. Maybe you're downsizing, getting a divorce, having health or financial issues. If so, head to TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com will buy your house quickly and without hassle. If you've inherited a house that is vacant, contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. Dealing with them is easy and quick. No high-pressure sales tactics, and you won't have to fix up the house. They will buy your house as is. You pick the closing date and when you move out. No commissions and no hassles. Contact TemplarBuysHouses.com. TemplarBuysHouses.com with an A rating from the Better Business Bureau. Call 973-315-7990. That's 973-315-7990.
Be sure to tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. for the Templar Real Estate Talk Show. Get informed and have your questions answered on AM 1250 WMTR.
Welcome back to the Templar Real Estate Show. And your host, Joseph J. Zoppi. Right now I'd like to go over certain economic news and where home prices are and where they're going. So, Labor Department reported back in November that 266,000 jobs were added, which is very strong. If you recall, I had stated that, you hear these individuals talking about recession, and you really need to take everything with a grain of salt, unfortunately, because depending on everything's right now is built on politics. It doesn't matter if you're an economist or not. It seems that that's the way it's going, that people are leaning a certain way, and that's how they're interpreting things or hoping that things are going to do or perform or occur. And as I said before, I don't see a recession right now. I've seen a number of indicators that stated that, and now they're saying the same thing, that there probably will not be a recession. In addition, even that occurred, then all of a sudden also the negotiation with China, they're going to ease up some of the tariffs, so that has also helped in a way. But previous to that, the job market's been very strong, and a lot of people I've talked to have said the same thing. I deal with a lot of individuals, a lot of investors throughout the country. As I said before, there's about 150 to 200 investors throughout the United States, and we talk almost on a monthly basis where their business is, how it's going, what's impacting it, what are they seeing? So I get a good macro view of the United States and see what areas are tightening up and what areas are still doing really, really well. In terms of home prices, right now they're thinking that some of the prices are going to go up to 5.4%. They're looking at. But I think in our area it's not going to be as high as that. Over the last year over year, New Jersey was up just a little over 1.5%. So a number of other areas are very, very strong. You have states in the Midwest, or the West really, and also in the South that are doing very well. Nevada was up 3.2%. Georgia, 4.3% in terms of home sale prices. Mississippi, 5.1%. Alabama, 3.3%. And you'll see some of these markets where you wouldn't think they're growing as much. So you have Mississippi, you have Alabama. They're all growing a lot. I know a number of investors that have started doing work in those areas, and they're pushing very hard, and it's really spurring. Whereas Louisiana was at, I think, 1.something%. So they're still very depressed, that state. But you're going to see over the next year, I think prices will still be flat. Maybe they'll be up a little bit. Maybe if the tariffs are removed completely, it might push it a lot higher. But right now, there's still a lot of properties on the market, and there is a decent amount of inventory, especially in certain areas. Next thing I want to talk about is cameras. So there was the surveillance of cameras. The use of cameras for surveillance continues to increase. Right now, China's number one in surveillance. America's very far behind in that in terms of anything we do. There's a big push for surveillance and use of cameras in certain cities like Orlando, Chicago, areas like that. I had a situation. We just purchased the property, and it was a 4-unit. It was a small property, and it had a security system. I was like, okay, that's fine. I looked at it briefly. It wasn't as important to me. The numbers were more important. The surveillance was not that important. But of course, 2 weeks into it, and I get a call, and one of the tenants says that the person downstairs is throwing eggs at their car. So I went down there, pulled up the surveillance camera, the cameras, and of course, the camera where it was pointing wasn't working. So, we looked at a number of things. I had someone fix the camera, or about to fix the camera. I called in one of my guys that does a lot of work on our properties, and I said, can you come down and fix the camera? I won't be available till Saturday, and I wanted to come down just to talk to him, especially because it was a new property, and I wanted to be there for it. So I show up in the morning for the property, and the one neighbor's parked the car again in the driveway where I was hoping they wouldn't have parked. I just thought it was common sense. And what was on the car again? Eggs. So I'll look, can't you just park somewhere else for the time being till I get that camera going? So we got the camera going. And I said, for the time being, please do not park in the driveway. There's a lot of street parking, and everyone parks on the street. And I said to them, wait till I figure out this security camera system, and how much footage it keeps, and getting remote access, those types of things, because it was set up rudimentary. It was just set up basically, and it doesn't, all the bells and whistles aren't set up. So right now I'm looking at that camera system and there's surveillance associated with it, and looking at possibly upgrading it. But I highly recommend if you have some type of apartment building, even if it's just 4 units on up, to get a camera system. I think it's very important just to spend the money, especially this day and age. The camera systems and the surveillance systems that they have now are just unbelievable, with how you can pick up, night vision, audio. They have one camera right now that they use in China that could track someone 4,000 feet away. And China builds a lot of facial recognition to track people. But it's really pretty crazy what's out there, and at a relatively inexpensive cost. Right now you could get a decent system for below $2,000, even, maybe under $1,000. Ours, I'd rather spend more money. A lot of times I want to spend a little extra on anything that we do because I just want it to be right. And I think that's very important. But for a basic homeowner, and if they have a rental property, 4 units, 5 units, then a basic system is fine. So I'd like to thank everyone, and if you have any questions, you could always reach us at TemplarBuysHouses.com. Thank you very much.
The preceding program was paid for by Templar Real Estate. The views and opinions expressed